Is 2024 going to be your year to retire? Well, today we have a retirement forecast for you so you can understand all the key factors you need to consider before you actually enter this next phase of life. So thank you so much for joining us. This is a show for you, what your money would say, telling you exactly that for retirement. That is our focus with Andrew McNair. He's the president of Swan Capital. And I want to start off with this phone number. This will be very helpful for today. 800-848-8768. You can call Andrew and his awesome team at Swan Capital for a discovery visit, a chance to discover, what do your retirement assets say? What does your plan say? Do you have a plan? Because Andrew and his team have worked really, really hard, and they would love to help you with your retirement. So again, that number is 800-848-8768. And I want to mention you can text the word book for Andrew's books that he has written. Those are complimentary. Find us online anytime at swan-capital.com. And Andrew, here we are again talking about retirement. So excited to be here with you.
Of course, it's always a great topic to talk about. That's what we talk about day in and day out. So I'm excited to share some keys and share some really tangible advice that you can take away for your own retirement.
Yeah. Okay. So financial analysts are saying that, we have persistent inflation, the possibility of living a long time in retirement. Those are really two of the biggest factors that people need to take into consideration if they're going to retire this year. So tell us how you talk about people and these challenges.
Well, it's an important conversation to have. I mean, if I just don't want anyone to fall for any politician's soothing words. Yes, inflation is lower than it has been. But what about the aftermath after the last 3 years of inflation? I mean, prices are higher and they're never going back down again. And so that's impacted our daily conversations with retirees who would have normally said, I want $80,000 a year, but now I'm hearing over and over again, I want $120,000 a year. I need $10,000 a month. And those numbers are becoming commonplace on what it takes to have a comfortable retirement.
Okay. So, we have so many challenges right now with spending because of inflation is what I mean. We're spending our money, spending more money. And then at the same time, we're supposed to be trying to save for retirement. And we know inflation is going to continue into retirement. So that's a tough challenge. How do people do it? My husband and I are kind of in this situation, right? We're trying to save for retirement and man, things are going up.
Sure. I mean, if you're 3 years out from retirement, it's so much more important than ever to have a good income planning, because if you do need that $10,000 or $15,000 a month for retirement or $7,000 a month for retirement, it doesn't matter. It takes a lot more assets to generate that. And so to understand the gravity of inflation for your retirement, I want to give you a really easy rule of thumb. It's the rule of 72. And so let's say inflation's historically been around 2 or 3%, but I would like to use 4% for the next decade or two. So if we divide 72 by 4, that tells you how often the prices are going to double. If you use a 4% inflation rate, that means every 18 years, your amount that you need for retirement is going to double. And so as someone that had a grandfather that had a 40-year retirement, that means he saw prices nearly double twice in his retirement. So who's to say this is the last bout of inflation that you will have up until retirement and throughout retirement?
Exactly. I mean, think about it. I don't know how long it was, but they say we did not have inflation for, I don't even know. Was it a decade? Was it 2 decades? I don't know. But boy, we're seeing it now, and for your grandfather to have experienced it twice, I just can only imagine what things cost when he was a kid and then when he was up in his 90s. Yeah. So,
but it's scary when you're on fixed income.
Right.
I mean, it really is scary. I mean, when you're still earning it, you don't worry about it as much, but when you're retired, it's so much more scary.
So the thing we have to do is in retirement, we try to grow the money that we have saved, but yet we have to be careful with it and preserve the money. So it's kind of hard to find that balance, but that's what you do. That's what you guys help people with, right?
Absolutely. I mean, if you think about it, most people treat their investments like a melting pot. They have a little stocks, little bonds in the melting pot, and so really they're mixing cold water and hot water just to have lukewarm results, and they wonder why they're really not getting ahead very quickly. And so the key is segmentation. It's really no wonder people are worried about the market and they're disappointed by their CDs that are earning more than they have in the past, but still are not keeping pace with inflation. And that's why it's so important to have an income plan. When we build an income plan for a client, and this is something you can try to do it yourself, but it is so much higher stakes when you're doing it for your retirement because you only do this once in a lifetime. We must have buckets, three minimally buckets built out. So the first bucket is number one, that's covering years 1 through 5. And that's where we're making sure that bucket is filled up with enough assets, but we're prioritizing in bucket number one protection and liquidity because we're going to need to get to that money soon and we need it protected. We don't want it to have market volatility. Then we need to have bucket number two. Now, bucket number two, it has to have liquidity in the fifth year. But again, we can prioritize protection and return in bucket number two. So it's distinct because we're focused on protection and return. Now, bucket number three, I have many conservative clients. I mean, my firm's named Swan Capital. So sleep well at night capital. And if you look at our bucket number three for 10 years and beyond, it has a lot of aggressive and growth like ETFs, and it has real estate. It has assets that we're not going to touch for 10 years. So in that bucket number three, we're prioritizing return first and foremost, then liquidity in the 10th year. And when you prioritize that in those order, you've really got your priorities in the right alignment for your income plan. And that is why it's so important. If you have these three buckets going into retirement, you have this income plan in place, you're not worrying about where's the market headed, what's the election going to do to my accounts. You have an income plan built, and that's what you need if you're 3 to 5 years out from retirement.
So you can get this help from Andrew and his team because they have worked really, really hard on what they call a sleep study. And of course, it's called Sleep Well at Night. It's not a sleep apnea study. I just did that the other night, by the way. So no, it's nothing like that. But that's the goal, to help you sleep well at night with your plan for retirement and have them help you figure out these buckets for you. Every retirement plan is different, isn't it, Andrew?
Absolutely. I mean, we have so many clients that they have military retirement, they have a VA, they have Social Security. And so maybe they have enough income, but they have big decisions to make about survivor benefit. So all of these questions that you have about your pensions and when to actually retire, when should you decide to let go your insurance and just stick with survivor benefit. All of these are big decisions and they're irrevocable. So if you want to get it right, take us up on that complimentary 1-hour sleep study by calling 1-800-848-8768. And we'll sit down with you for 1 hour, answer all the questions that you have about retirement, and make sure that you have an income plan in place. So again, 1-800-848-8768.
And to make things easier, you can also text the word SWAN. Just text that word to that same number and get an appointment that way and talk to them that way. Also, their website, swan-capital.com, where you can find out about Andrew's books that he has written and how you can get those complimentary. So thank you for joining us. You're listening to What Your Money Would Say, because we are here to be helpful with you in retirement. And this is what Andrew has been doing his entire career, and they would love to work with you. I'm Louann Fulmer. So, the latest reports about the Social Security Trust Fund are exactly what we have feared, although it's for now. Okay, they are saying that the trust fund could fall short this year, Andrew, without action by Congress. Now, we've been saying that. This is 2024. One of the options, of course, is to raise the full retirement age. That's usually what they do, right? But I just wanted to get your reaction to this.
Yeah, I mean, many times I'm meeting with clients and they're thinking that Social Security won't be there. And I say, absolutely not. It will be there because we're all underestimating the ability to tax our citizens here in the United States. I mean, in the United States, we uniquely tax you wherever you go, even if you travel abroad. So we are definitely going to have Social Security. Too many people depend on it. What they will do is they'll look at raising retirement age, just like France did. And that didn't go over well, by the way. way. They'll
Riots,
also
right?
probably wait to the last. Yeah. And they'll wait to the last minute to do it. And that's what's so frustrating about Congress is they always wait to the last minute. And that's why, I digress. We probably need some new ones in there. And then we also have the ability to raise FICA tax from, roughly 7.5% to a higher percentage to cover that. And so I think they're going to look at all of those options. And sadly, they'll wait till the last minute. They won't make enough cuts. They won't make enough changes. And then they will have to revisit again, just like we do the national debt all the time. But the last time Congress made a change like that was in 1983 when the full retirement age was raised to 67 for all Americans born in 1960 or later. So a current proposal right now is to raise it to 69. Again, they didn't ask me this. They said, we're going to raise it to 69 and we want to phase it in over the next 8 years, starting in 2026. Why make it so complicated? They should make drastic changes, such as anyone that is under the age of 40, your new retirement age is going to be 65, 70, and 72.
Yeah.
They should just overhaul the system.
Yeah.
And if they did that, that would be very large changes. It would affect millions of people. But the people that are in their 40s are not even thinking about Social Security. So change it on those, not the seniors.
Exactly.
But that makes too much sense for Congress.
Okay. And speaking of Congress, we are now in the middle of an election year. A lot of things are up in the air and things are heating up. Nikki Haley, she was bold enough to mention Social Security changes. So that was kind of cool. But how are you talking to your clients who are just worried about all this uncertainty in our country?
Yeah, I would just say don't get, hoodwinked. I mean, I've heard it so many times. I sold all my stocks because Trump got elected. I sold all my stocks because Biden got elected. Presidents don't change markets overnight. Now, their policies do impact markets over time. But sadly, so many people fall for this. And when you sell, you have to be right twice. You have to know when to get in, when to get out. And that is just putting yourself up in a position for failure because it's about time in the market, not market timing. It's as age old as it comes. That sage advice is so true. And so think about that. If you start getting scared about the election cycle, if you don't think it's going your way, actually take a little hiatus from the TV, do whatever's necessary, but make sure that you act boldly with your investments and just believe in the market long term. I mean, what we have to always understand is regardless of where our country's headed, what I do know is that technology is headed forward. And so is the whole civilization as a whole. So again, always want to bet not against the market, bet that the market's going to grow long term. All
right. And Andrew's here to guide you about any decisions you might need to make about retirement. They could help you with by doing the Swan sleep study. Maybe you could figure out, I could retire earlier than planned, or maybe they can help you find just one thing to tweak in your plan. But they are here for you. Here's the number again, 800-848-8768. Give them a call. The Swan Sleep Study is what you want to get. Give them a call. Go in and see them. Get on their calendar. We do have to take a quick break, but we are not done yet. Still lots more to come with Andrew McNair. This is What Your Money Would Say. Hi, we're so happy to have you along with us today. I'm Louann Fulmer here with Andrew McNair, President and CEO of Swan Capital. If you think back to the past 20 years of your life, I bet a lot has happened that you didn't even see coming. If you think about it, I'm sure some unexpected blessings happened, maybe some obstacles that you had to overcome. But either way, there were unknowns that happened, right, in your past. And guess what? They're going to continue throughout the rest of your life and your future as well. So that's where I want to go right now, Andrew. Let's talk about the big unknowns for retirement. You've seen a lot of them already.
I have, meeting with literally 40, 50 retirees in any single week. I see a lot of the same mistakes and blind spots. And one retirement unknown that I always like to talk about is longevity. Others could be healthcare costs, performance of the markets over time, potential tax increases down the road. None of us know any of the answers to those for each and every one of our situations. So that's why we have to have a plan, because the plan is going to have to be course adjusted when those unknowns appear, either positive or negative.
Yeah, exactly. Longevity. So let's go with that first. None of us know how long we're going to live. it's kind of a double-edged sword because I think most of us want to live a long time. We're healthy, but then we're kind of scared because we're like, did I save enough money? So that's probably the first question people ask you, when they get ready to retire. Have I saved enough? So how do you show them and give them confidence?
Sure. It's essential you plan longer than you think. I mean, we plan minimally for age 100. Why? Because I've had a 104-year-old client. I mean, he never thought he was going to live that long. Not at age 65, 75, 85. You get the picture. If you'd have surveyed him at any point in his life, he never thought he was going to live that long. And so people underestimate their age and longevity, how long they will live all the time. So if your money isn't prepared, it can be a very quiet retirement when you're forced to stay inside with no money to spend. Mm-hmm. So that's why when we build out our income plans and our financial plans over a whole, I'm showing clients that you have a 98% of probability of never running out of money. And it's just like if you boarded a plane, you would want to know the probability that it's going to land in your destination. And it better be like 98% or better, or I'm not on that plane.
Exactly. So, I was watching a movie on Netflix or a series on Netflix at Andrew. Sorry. Ooh, my bad. Sorry. Here we go. I was watching a series on Netflix, Andrew, and you've probably seen it because you're kind of a healthy person. It's called The Blue Zones in the World, where people live to be centenarians. And it's because of their lifestyle, the foods they eat, and the fact that they stay active. And none of them had dementia. None of them. And
I was so inspired by that.
Same.
I actually wrote a blog about it.
Oh, did you?
And I did. So if someone types in Pensacola Financial Advisor, it actually takes them to that blog because I talk about why the Gulf Coast can be a blue zone because you have community and you have good food and you have all of the factors that can make you live a long life here on the Gulf Coast.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Okay, so I'm going to go back and read that. But it was just so interesting to me. And so we do all, I think, want to live a nice long life if we can be healthy. So if we do live a long time, we have to make sure that income lasts, right? So we can continue doing things like we're talking about. So give us some income tools that we could use to help that money stretch.
Well, you need income vehicles that don't get tired. You need income vehicles that are not going to run out of gas very quickly. So we suggest clients have rental income, owner finances, aka mortgages paid back to you. We need to have dividend paying companies. We need to have preferred share dividends. We want to have things like pensions and annuities and life insurance and oil and royalty income. We want to make sure we optimize Social Security. We need income that runs out after we die. That's when it stops. We don't need incomes that fluctuate based on interest rates. I mean, it's nice to have some CD interest, but that's not in your control. And it could get tired and it could run out or it could decrease. And so that's why you have to have a diversified income plan. And so many people are just relying on bond income and very low dividend paying stocks. And that is not sufficient enough to have a diversified income plan in retirement.
All right. So, this is something that you do. You help retirees stretch that money and help them come up with a plan, but every single plan is different. You call it your swan sleep study. That's how you figure out, what every person needs. Tell us a little bit more about that. You're offering that to our listeners today.
Yeah, I mean, it's a complimentary visit. I'm basically buying 1 hour of my time for you, where you have me for 1 hour to really ask whatever question you can come up with about retirement. If you want to talk about estate planning, great. We have an estate planning attorney in our office. If you want to talk about tax planning, great. We have a CPA in office. Many times financial advisors cannot even give advice about taxes, but we have a CPA in office. If you want to talk about the most important topic that is on your top of mind for your retirement, that's why we have a sleep study. It's a 1 hour visit so that we make sure that you have straight A's going into retirement. And when you have straight A's going into retirement, that is a report card that you can be proud of, that you can post on your wall, that you are ready for retirement. And that's why we give our clients a retirement ready t-shirt, because I want them to know that they can go boldly into retirement, not tiptoe into retirement. So if you want to take us up on this sleep study, give us a call at 1-800-848-8768. That's 1-800-848-8768.
Wouldn't you like to feel confident that your nest egg is set up for a long, flourishing retirement and having that strategy to help you do so? That's what this is all about. If you've been thinking about calling Andrew and his team, do it. This is what they do. They help retirees like you. Check them out yourself. Andrew has a monthly market recap. He has blogs on his website, swan-capital.com. We thank you so much for joining us. I'm Louann Fulmer. So, Fidelity. We always talk about this on our show, Andrew, that they estimate that the average couple retiring is going to spend about $315,000 on healthcare costs in retirement. Those are big numbers. They don't include long-term care either. So how do you talk to your peeps about having a healthcare strategy?
I mean, we have to have a person that handles that. I mean, I always talk about, you need a who, not a why. I mean, I don't need to know the how. I don't need to know the why. I need a who. I need someone that takes care of that. And that's why we have Paul in our office, who is a Medicare ninja. I mean, he helps our clients navigate the decisions of which supplement to take or which advantage plan. And we have clients that are on FEHB. They're on federal health insurance. And so we have big decisions to make. Maybe they're taking VA as their health insurance. So there's big decisions that need to be made about your health care. And this is something that you want to get right because like we were talking about earlier, some of these healthcare expenses for a back surgery can cost your family $300,000.
Oh, wow.
And so if you have 10 to 20% cost, I mean, that's huge. The next thing I want to talk about, Louann, is long-term care. You mentioned that doesn't even include long-term care. Here in Escambia County, and Baldwin County is not much different either, is that the average cost of an assisted living is $4,300. That's the average for one person, not two. So you add an extra 1,000 or 1,500, you're going to have to add to that cost for a second person fee. And so that's the average for one person. You might want to stay in a really nice facility, and that'll be even more. If you want to stay in your own home, staying in your own home is not cheaper. A lot of times it's more expensive. I've lived so many lives watching through the eyes of my clients what they've gone through. I've watched families spend $12,000 to $13,000 a month for having a caregiver around the clock in their own home. And so you have to make sure that you're doing long-term care planning and not long-term care insurance. You don't have to buy something to do long-term care planning. And I'll share with you one tool, Louann. And that is VA aid and attendance, veteran aid and attendance. And you can Google this for more information. There's so much confusion about this benefit. It's been around since 1953. It is a very amazing benefit because it helps families with a monetary supplement to help offset the cost of care in their own home, assisted living, or nursing home. But many people, they don't know the qualifications. You had to serve at least 90 days active service with at least one day during a wartime period. You never had to serve overseas. You never had to be injured, but you had to serve that call. You have to have help with your ADLs, activities of daily living, things like meal preparation, transportation, what, again, typically people call in caregivers for into their own home. If you went into assisted living, they would be helping you out with these ADLs. The other thing is about veteran aid and attendance is you need to understand that it's based on marital status. So if a veteran single is actually eligible for this benefit, they're going to get over $1,900 a month. That one individual will get $1,900 a month on top of a Social Security, on top of a military pension. That's how much they would get. A widow out there could receive up to $1,400 or more, as long as their spouse served at least 90 days active service with at least one day during a wartime period. They're a widow of a wartime veteran. They could have met them later on in life. They only had to be married for at least a year. And then the last is the veteran and spouse benefit, which is at this time, over $2,500 a month. And sadly, so many people think, well, I'm not eligible for that. You might be. They allow you to keep your home. They allow you to keep over $140,000 in assets. They don't count some assets in a trust, depending on what type of trust it is. And this benefit could be a huge part of your long-term care planning, but you have to know about it. You have to know how to apply for it. And that's why we in our office have a VA accredited estate planning attorney who will make sure that you have a DD-214, a marriage certificate, a birth certificate, all ready and prepared so that if your aunt or uncle, your mother or father, or if you are going to need to apply for this benefit, that they have the documents in place to apply, that you have your ducks in a row. So if you want to take us up on going through what we call an intake, a VA intake for veteran aid and attendance with our estate planning attorney, all you have to do to schedule that call is call this number, 1-800-848-8768. And you can come in. We have an office in Pensacola and Daphne, and we'll be happy to answer your questions about long-term care insurance, and that if your benefit needs to increase, or maybe you take the lower premium, or if you just want to talk about veteran aid and attendance. So give us a call at 1-800-848-8768.
Wow, great information there, Andrew. And when we come back, we're going to talk about the markets, because they could be up, they could be down, they could be sideways when you're headed into retirement. We're going to talk about how you can plan to handle all those. We're going to talk about how your plan can handle all those variables. We'll be right back with What Your Money Would Say and Andrew McNair. Hi, I'm Louann Fulmer here with Andrew McNair. And, it's impossible to predict whether the markets are going to be up or down or sideways when you retire. That's one of the big unknowns that we're going to face in retirement. So let's talk about that, Andrew. How you build a plan for good So let's talk about that, Andrew, how you build a plan for good markets, bad markets, and everything in between.
Sure. They don't teach you this in college. At the universities, I found out the hard way. Luckily, I started interning at a financial firm when I was 14. And so by the time I was 18, I started seeing my own clients. And when I was told, my mother said, you got to go to college. You have these scholarships. You need to take advantage of it. I listened to my mother and I went to school. And when I got there, I was shocked. They were teaching these college freshmen in finance that you should put a little bit of your client's money in bonds, cold water. Okay. You should put some of your client's money in hot water. And do you know what happens, Louann, when you mix hot water and cold water together?
Yeah, lukewarm.
Yeah. And they said, this is how you slow down the portfolio so it doesn't drive over a cliff. And I thought to myself, no, that's how you don't get fired, because lukewarm results make sure that you can charge fees on your clients during good times and bad times, and you don't get fired. And I found out that success leaves clues. If you look at major endowments, you look at pension funds, you look at family offices where you have to have a minimum net worth of $50 or $100 million. They don't manage money that way. So here's, again, the big block of the public is managing their money with this mixture of stocks and bonds, but that's not how wealthy people manage their money. So what I did is I took the concept that endowments, like the Yale endowment, manages their money, and I shrunk it. Instead of managing $47 billion, to shrink it to someone that has $2 million. And we explain this secret sauce called the fiscal house. And people say, why would you share your Coke formula? Well, it takes so much work that I doubt people are going to do it anyway. But we need to make sure that you have foundational assets. Foundational assets are anything that is tied to interest rates. So when interest rates go up, you make more money. Think MYGAs, checking accounts, savings accounts, money markets, government bonds like I-bonds, and things like life insurance, anything that is foundational that cannot go anywhere. It's bedrock. It's typically a safer investment. Then we need to have roof accounts. Now, roof accounts are great when it's sunny outside. But when you have a hurricane, which we know way too much about here on the Gulf Coast, you're going to start losing shingles. We need to have market-related accounts like stocks and ETFs and bonds and mutual funds. Why? Because when the market's doing well, in those sunny days, you want to enjoy the springs and summers. But where people sadly miss it is in the wall sections. Most people do not have wall accounts that are insulated from market risk. And examples of these, which is not available to everyone, but things like private equity, non-publicly traded companies, so private equity, things like hedge funds, things like index CDs and index annuities and puts and options, things that zig when the market zags. Real estate is a great example of a wall account. So when you have foundational accounts and wall accounts and roof accounts, you're not worried about where the market's headed. Why? Because you are properly, insulated with wall accounts. You're not worried about interest rates because you have foundational accounts. And when you're in that position of strength, that's when you're ready for retirement.
Very, very good. So that's the way you guys help people manage market risk, because we certainly can't control the market, right?
Exactly. And again, we need to be able to actually not only be at the mercy of the market, we want to be able to take advantage of the market. And so here's how we helped many of our clients in 2020 is that when the market dropped over, 30%, what it seemed like overnight, we use that as an opportunity to take money from the foundational accounts and the wall accounts to buy while the market was in a selling mode because the market is manic. I mean, if it was a person, it would be on depressant medicine because constantly it's like this shopkeeper that says everything's for sale, take everything, it's half price. And then some days it's like, nope, we have low inventory, we don't want to sell it to you, everything's overpriced right now. And you have to be in a position and you have to have an advisor and you have to have a plan that can change with those economics. If not, you're stuck with the college freshman that finally graduated from finance and has put your money in stocks and bonds only. And you just have this melting pot of lukewarm results.
And then the other thing is, having this type of a plan helps you avoid making those emotional decisions that so many people make when things are rocky in the economy, right?
Absolutely. Many times I've thought about putting a lounge chair in my conference room, and I think it would go over really well because we would point to it and we'd say, is it time to sit on the couch? Because so many times we get so panicked ourselves because we watch so much news. And that's how we like to end our days. We'd like to say, how much blood and, breaking news and world events do we need to take in before we go to sleep for the next 8 hours? And we do this habit of taking in all of this information. And then when we get up in the morning, we take a cup of coffee and we hear about the market being down another 200 points. And we may be 2 years from retirement, and it's scary. And so that's why we build every client a financial plan. And what I found is a lot of people have statements. They maybe have portfolios, but if you were to hard press them and say, show me your financial plan, a financial plan should have an estate plan. It should have a tax strategy. It should have an investment thesis, which I just talked about. It should have long-term care, asset protection, just to name a few. Those all should be factored into this blueprint I'm talking about.
Okay, and so the way you can get this is by putting this phone number in your phone. If you haven't done this yet, Andrew, you and I have been doing this radio show for, about 8 years now. So if you don't have, listen to our listener, if you don't have this number memorized by now, let me give it to you again, 800-848-8768. Put that in your phone, okay? You may call the office of Swan Capital, set up an appointment, get on their calendar. And then also you could text the word SWAN if you prefer just texting. I think we all like to text because it's quick and we're all kind of in that phase of life where we want to just do things quick. Text the word SWAN, 800-848-8768. And always head to their website too. Great information there. See what Andrew's been up to. swan-capital.com. And we're so excited you joined us. This is what your money would say. One thing I want to get to right now is taxes. We don't know what tax policy is going to be in place when we retire. That's another unknown. So talk about, what we could be doing right now to plan for taxes in the future.
Well, we don't know where they're headed exactly, but we know in 2026 that because of the Trump tax cut was set up in a way that it will expire in 2026. So we are most likely headed towards higher taxes. And unless a Christmas miracle happens called lower government spending, that's going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, our national debt right now, Louann, is at the same peak as it was at World War II. If you adjust it for inflation, according to our GDP, we're at the same peak. And then I always joke, and it's a sad joke, and it's a very sober joke that, COVID was terrible. That's what got us into this pickle even worse, is our national debt rose to actually print money to help people and businesses that went through COVID. But the Nazis were way worse than COVID, and they killed a lot more people than that. So we have to understand that this bill will only continue to put pressure on our national budget. And that means, where do they get their income? They can't print it. They have to get most of it from taxes. And that's what they're going to do, is they're going to raise taxes on those individuals that haven't planned accordingly. Not on my family. Why? Because I have most of my money in tax-free investments, things like Roth IRAs and Roth 401ks, because I don't trust the government not increasing taxes and not creating new taxes for me and my family. And so I encourage you to do the same thing. Most people just complain about taxes, but you can sit down with someone like our team that not only understands tax planning, we bring in a CPA who is in our office to make sure that you're getting up-to-date tax law and you're taking advantage of the tax strategies and the availability of the tax code for your retirement.
So you just mentioned, right now we kind of do have a window of opportunity to make changes to keep our taxes lower. Do you want to go into a Roth conversion and explain that to us, what people could be doing? Yeah.
A lot of people have heard of this, and we've been doing this for the last 4 or 5 years with clients to the tune of millions of dollars. And sadly, there's just a lot of confusion. A lot of families say, but Andrew, you can only move $7,000 a year. No, we helped a family just recently move $127,000 to the Roth. Another misconception is I was told that I had to wait till I was 59 and a half to do a Roth conversion. No, you can do it when you're 40. I've had people say, but you have to pay the taxes out of your pocket. And I said, I don't know who told you that. It can come out of the money if you're over the age of 59 and a half. I've had people say, but Andrew, I have to have earned income to put money into a Roth. And I say, I'm sorry, I don't know who told you that either. Of course you can put money into a Roth if you're not having earned income and you're already retired. And that's some of the advice that our clients have been looking for. But when they have the 1-800, advisor at a brokerage house that's not allowed to give tax advice, they're in the dark. And it's not you that loses. It's not the CPA that loses, it's you that loses. When we don't know about tax codes, when we don't know about tax strategies, we lose as the taxpayer, not the CPA, not the financial advisor. We do as the taxpayer. And so that's why we have a CPA in our office to make sure that clients don't try to do this at home. If you start doing a Roth conversion at home, just like if you see someone trying to build a deck off the side of their house, it could be a disaster because they don't have the permitting. They don't have the general contractor experience. And so what does that mean? People pay more taxes on their Social Security. It means higher Medicare premiums. It means they lose tax deductions and credits because they didn't have professionals.
Okay. So if someone has not planned for, these big unknowns in retirement, like we've been talking about, maybe they're not even sure where to begin. What advice do you have for them, Andrew?
I would say if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far and you want to have a safer journey, you should go with someone. And maybe you already have a financial advisor. And I tell every family this that feels guilt about coming in for a visit. It's impossible to get a second opinion from the person that gives you your first. At the end of the day, it's not my money at stake. It's not your advisor's money at stake. It's yours. And so if the plan is really good, if your portfolio and your statements are really solid, then they should be able to withstand a second opinion. And so that's what we're offering. It's a complimentary visit. And we're not going to treat you like a dentist that shines that bright light on you and says, you should have been flossing for the last 4 years. We're not going to make you feel bad about the decisions that you didn't take advantage of. We're just going to share new information. And then you'll choose what you want to do with that information. So take us up on that complimentary visit by calling 1-800-848-8768. That's 1-800-848-8768.
What Your Money Would Say with Andrew McNair. We'll be right back. Hang on one second. I gotta give us 30 seconds. Excuse me, 1 second. And don't forget, check out their website, swan-capital.com. Great information there. You can find out more about Andrew and his awesome team at Swan Capital, where they have put together this awesome sleep study. They've worked really hard on helping retirees. Take advantage of this and definitely get some help with your retirement. Those big unknowns are out there, and they want to help guide you. They've seen it all, so they can certainly do that. All right, we have to take a quick break. Not done yet, though. The rest of our show will return with Andrew McNair. This is What Your Money Would Say. Okay.
I have 10 minutes left.
All right, I rambled.
Can we do a segment 4?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Okay. We got to do it in 10 minutes and 12.
I'm ready.
Okay. Mailbag. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Hey, thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us. I'm Louann Fulmer here with Andrew McNair, and we are going to get into our What Your Money Would Say mailbag again today. Andrew, I've got some great questions for you, retirement questions you probably get all the time, but we're going to pose them on the airwaves, okay?
Sure. I'm ready.
All right. First question. You hope. Yeah. No, you definitely are good at any of these. So, all right.
We'll see.
First question is from Lydia. She says, how do I figure out how much of my retirement income could be taxed?
Ooh, that's a good question. I mean, if we're talking state tax, federal tax, I don't know what Lydia's question is, if it's state or federal, but here's what I'll tell you. In the state of Florida, for example, there's no state tax, so that's pretty nice, but many things are taxed federally. I've had clients that said, Andrew, I'm a senior. Do I pay less taxes now? I'm like, no, only Denny's gives discounts. So again, 85% of Social Security can be taxable. Your military pension is going to be taxable. If you're looking at VA, that won't be taxable. So there are certain incomes that are absolutely still taxable in retirement. And here's what I want a takeaway to be. Many times people forget that their IRAs are frozen retirement income. So when you start taking that money out, you're going to have to pay taxes on that RMD, on that IRA. And RMDs are not your friend. That's the procrastination plan for procrastinators created by the federal government. And what most people don't realize is when you pass away, you leave your spouse that frozen retirement income. But now that they're a single tax filer, they actually pay more taxes. So how do you figure out how much your retirement income could be taxed? Is meet with someone, financial advisor ideally, that understands tax planning, but ideally, even better than that, would have a CPA in office. And again, I hate to toot our own horn, is we have a CPA in office to make sure that our clients get complete tax planning advice.
Okay, and that is part of your sleep study plan. It's what you take people through for their retirement, and everybody's plan is different. But you guys can certainly get yours if you need some guidance on tax strategies where you can say, gosh, they could save so much money. You know, who wants to pay Uncle Sam more than they really need to?
Because they deserve a tip. They're so great up there in D.C. I should tip them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So 800-848-8768. Anything that stands out to you today, if you have your own questions, certainly give Andrew and his team a call at Swan Capital. They'd love to guide you. Here's another question for us as we dig into our What Your Money Would Say mailbag. Audra says, I don't think my husband and I are on the same page when it comes to our retirement. Do you meet with very many couples in a situation like ours, or should we try to resolve all of our issues before meeting with a financial planner? There's that couch again.
Good luck.
I think
trying to get rid of all those issues before meeting with a financial planner. I get her concern. I mean, I am in those visits day in and day out where it can get a little hot. It can get a little tension is boiling. And here's what I'll tell you. I'm married. I understand what it's like to be married. And there's things that I could tell my wife and that she would hear it, but she would hear it that much more if it came from a professional. And she would probably respond to it differently if it came from a licensed professional. And so that's the power of having a financial planner, sometimes be a mediator to really help set expectations, to set realistic goals, and then say and point out issues. Like sometimes I've said, if you continue on this path, you'll work and then you'll die. You will never have a retirement. Retirement is not a right, and it never should be. It's a responsibility. And so therefore, when I come in and I tell you that, it doesn't sound like I'm harping. It doesn't sound like I'm telling you to spend less money on golf clubs or shoes. I'm just trying to help you out as a couple because my client is the family. It's not one client over another. I'm looking at both clients the whole time. And I'm saying this is what we need to address if you want to have the retirement that y'all dreamed of.
Yeah, I mean, oh my gosh, you've seen it all. Like I keep saying, worked with married couples, and you're kind of like a marriage counselor, probably at many times. Correct?
That's true. And again, I would just come in and not be shy about it. The more information I have, again, there's nothing new under the sun. I mean, like people are saying, this is going to be shocking, or I bet you've never heard this before. And I kind of laugh to myself. I'm like, I hope it's something I've never seen before because that's what makes my job exciting.
Exactly. So my husband is a marriage ministry, counselor, sure. I guess. He doesn't have a license or anything, but yeah, he sees a lot. He sees it all. And anytime someone says that, he's like, oh, yeah, I've probably seen it before. So don't worry. Come on in. All right. So again, the phone number we want you to put in your phone is 800-848-8768. Andrew and his team at Swan Capital can put together what they call a sleep study Well, it's a sleep well at night study for you to take a look at your retirement assets and try to get the two of you on the same page if that's what it takes. Kind of just show you everything with clarity that you could have confidence in retirement by putting a plan together. This is what they do. They are retirement planners, and they are here to guide you. So 800-848-8768. And you're listening to What Your Money Would Say. I'm Louann Fulmer with Andrew McNair. Digging into our mailbag. This next question, Andrew, is from Ruben. Oh, he says, I'm starting to look for a financial planner, and I'm not sure how to find the best fit. What's your typical client like?
Oh, typical client is 3 years from retirement, 5 years from retirement. They're typically 60 years old. They have a family. They probably have 3 kids. They have similar dreams about traveling and doing their hobbies, volunteering, spending more time in their church. I mean, that's a typical client. But to answer the deeper question of, how do I find out if they're the best fit? I actually wrote an article on how to interview a financial advisor. So all you have to do is type in interview questions, financial advisor interview, Andrew McNair into Google, and it'll pop up for Market Watch.
Yeah.
It was one of the hardest articles I've ever written because I've been doing this since I was 14. So I didn't know. I was like, I had to step out of myself, which was kind of weird, and say, what would I ask? And I would ask, what are your fees? I would ask to see their financial plan. To me, that's probably the biggest pet peeve is I have some of I would call them great friends of mine, but they're colleagues of mine as well. And sadly, many of them do not have a financial plan. They tell people about having a financial plan. They help people have a financial plan, but they don't have one themselves. Or worse, they're making investments, but the clients never ask to say, are you invested in this? And so I think it's important to understand that your financial advisor should have obviously different retirement goals than you, but they should be following their own advice. So that's how you find the best fit is you find someone that practices what they preach. When you take advice from someone, you're trading places with that person. So it's important to make sure that you would be willing to trade places with them. And then lastly, you hopefully enjoy them. Some people don't like that I don't have hair, that have very little of it. I mean,
you're very nice looking without hair. Not everybody can pull it off, Andrew.
Luckily, the head is round. But you know what? My point is like, if there is something in their personality that, doesn't jive with you, that's fine. Like, I know I'm not going to be appealing to everyone. I probably frustrate some people. And you should work with someone that you enjoy working with because it's a 20, 30-year relationship.
Yeah, I love that. And I love the fact that when I read that question, I was like, oh, yeah, you wrote an article about this. So excellent. Indeed. Definitely look for that. Interview questions for financial advisor Andrew McNair. Yeah. Okay, here's another one for you from Dana. She says, I'm really worried about what would happen if I were to be diagnosed with Alzheimer's. I've watched several people in my family suffer from it, and it scares me. How do I get all the big financial decisions taken care of if this were to happen to me too?
I think where I've come late into the party and watched families suffer and agonize when someone has a disability, they have dementia, it's because they don't have all their ducks in a row. And so this is why we're adamant about having every client have a SWAN binder. That binder has a peace of mind checklist that says in this checklist where all of my important documentation is. The first page on the binder says, stop, call Andrew. Call the firm at Swan Capital because they'll help you navigate these investments. And we have an estate planning attorney in office too, who will review all the legal documents before they go in that binder to make sure that you have solid estate planning documents. And then we put not only your legal documents, 2 years tax returns, because sadly, demented, disabled, and deceased people have to pay taxes too. And then we put all of your investments and we organize your investments in a way that fits our methodology. And then you put the insurance documents because home insurance has to be renewed when you have dementia, when you have Alzheimer's. So it's important to have all these documents in place. A bank statement, as simple as that is, a bank statement. I've known clients that they had 4 or 5 different banks. And I told them, when you get dementia, how is your child going to know where you bank without a 1 month bank statement, especially if it's all electronic? And so it's very important that you have one of these SWAN binders. And so if you have your legal documents and they haven't been reviewed for 3 to 5 years, I encourage you to schedule one of our complimentary visits, because I'll bring in our estate planning attorney who happens to be in our office. We work with a lot of different estate planning attorneys, but we have one in office that will review your documents for free. We'll give you the list of documents you need for that SWAN binder so that you and your family are prepared. So give us a call at 1-800-848-8768 to schedule that complimentary visit that we call a sleep study, to make sure that you're retirement ready, to make sure that you can sleep well at night in retirement, because that's our goal for every family. And that's why we call it Swan Capital. So 1-800-848-8768.
And then one other thing I want to squeeze in here, because we talked about this earlier, there are these blue zones in our world that actually where these centenarians, 100-year-olds, are living healthy without any dementia or Alzheimer's. And you mentioned community. We should not isolate ourselves. We should be in community with friends and family. Have a purpose, whatever it is, something that you love to do every day. It doesn't have to be big. You don't have to work. Make sure you're eating healthy. Move, whether it's just gardening or whatever. But there are things we can do to avoid the whole disease of Alzheimer's and dementia. So, yeah, everybody needs to read more about that. I think we could change that in our country. There are some blue zones in our country. You said right there on the Gulf Coast.
We just need them to expand, and that's why I wrote the article about why the Gulf Coast is a place to retire, because we have all the attributes of a blue zone. We just have to follow it, and we have to get in a community, get in a small group of your church, have a community. We need to eat some of the fresher foods. We don't need canned foods. We got fresh seafood. And so all of these things can attribute to lower Alzheimer's rates. So again, I hope you will read some of those articles and do your research.
Thank you so much, Andrew. Great show today. Always love being with you.
All right. We'll see you next time on What Your Money Would Say.